Where do you think things are going to be in 2025? In 5 years from now, how
Right.
do you think the sort of social, cultural, political climate is going to be? Do you think we'll be
Good
in a
question.
better place, or do you think that this is potentially gonna, because this has
Well,
happened quickly. Like you said, you started
yeah, yeah.
noticing this in 2015. So from 2015 to here, it's happened quickly. So in another 5 years, where do you think things will be?
So best case scenario is that people are going to wake up to this stuff. People are going to, as you say, start mocking it, start standing up. Not capitulating is the key. So, when your boss calls you in for an anti-racist diversity workshop, studies are now showing that these actually do make more racists.
Lo
um,
and behold.
yeah, who could have thought it? And
Yeah.
then so more and more people are going to start saying, no, I'm not doing it. Sorry, I'm not. I'm not going to have you tell me that I'm a racist when I'm not. More than that, I'm not going to have unconscious bias sessions. Doesn't matter about what I think. You have no right in a liberal society to be probing around in my head, right? You just like, so stuff like this. People, more and more people, and maybe in 5 years it'll just have gone away. And what will the best case scenario is? People will say to me, and people like me, and people like you, "Oh, you were making a fuss about nothing. What a waste of time that was." And all your books and all your articles and all the rest of it are just wasted. Were just a waste of time. That's best case scenario that I'm out of a job in that respect. And I'm fine with that. I'd rather the world change in that direction and all of it. And I can go on to writing about other stuff that I'm really excited about. That I'm writing about this stuff now because I feel I have to.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd love nothing more than to be able to go back to writing about literature and other political issues which are really important. Economic inequality. I mean, they don't care about that, but I do. I think this sort of stuff they really don't. By the way, they have that. The privilege for them is all about identity.
Yes.
Whereas of course the key point of privilege is how much money you have and how obviously it's a no brainer. So I think maybe that, or it'll go the other way. And what makes me very nervous is the American situation, because Biden and the Democrats have completely bought into identity politics in this big way.
Yes.
Kamala Harris obviously is overt about that, and even Biden himself has called himself the transitional president. I think they're voting for
I,
Kamala
I
Harris.
mean, the fact that she's even the vice president, like not well, the vice presidential nominee,
Hmm.
based on her immutable characteristics.
Well, she
He's
tanked in the presidentials.
yeah, but
She isn't
yeah,
She wasn't
no,
popular.
no, no. I mean,
She had to drop
Biden
out.
said my vice president is going to be a woman. Like he said that months ago, and he said, and most likely, oh, and and then people said, well, it must be a woman of color.
I
So
think
she
he
was
got.
literally picked based on her immutable characteristics, not because they actually think she's the best person for the
Yeah,
job.
I think he was cornered by Charlemagne the God. I think it was who cornered him into it should be a black woman. Because I think he'd said it'll be a woman, and then it was, well, now it'll be a black woman. And okay, well, why not just choose the best candidate? And if it's a black woman, great. Like, no one will care. They'll care about. Well, also, she kind of called him a rapist,
And a
and
racist. And a
and a
racist.
racist. So yeah, she had that whole conversation about the segregation of schools, and so yeah, that's a pretty big. So I think it's quite clear he didn't want to pick her. Like, I think it's if someone called me a racist rapist, I probably wouldn't give them a cushy job. So I don't think he wanted to, but he feels he has. But that what this does mean is effectively now, I'm not a supporter of Trump, because I believe in statesmanship, and I don't. I think he's very funny, but I don't want the president to be funny. I want. That's the thing. So
I do.
okay, okay. One thing I do
I think
like.
it undermines the entire thing to some degree, which I actually think is good.
Well, the
Maybe.
thing that I like is the extent that he annoys all the right people, but he also does annoy the wrong people. And I think I don't think he's very good at diplomacy, and I think,
Peace
well,
in the
that
Middle
said,
East. Peace in the
I
Middle
know
East.
I was about to say
Peace with North
Israel,
Korea. Yeah.
Dubai. Yeah, okay, okay. Um, but even so, I still don't think that the leader of the free world should be calling another leader fat on Twitter. Right. So that's just my. I don't think that's diplomatic, personally, particularly when they've got a nuclear arsenal. But that said,
Yeah.
what if a buffoon like Trump is the defense against the complete destruction of Western civilization? Right. So I don't know. Like, I honestly, I couldn't vote for him, but I couldn't vote Democrat either. Luckily, I'm absolved of that responsibility
Sure.
because I'm over here. But
Yeah.
either way, I think it will exacerbate the tensions, because if you buy into the woke stuff to the extent that the Democrats have, things are going to get worse and worse and worse and more illiberal. But if you But if Trump gets in again, they'll double down. They'll take that as further proof that they're in the fascist nation, and things will escalate anyway. That's what makes me nervous. I think, and I can't see a way out of it. So, to go back to your question, where will we be in 5 years? I think whatever the outcome of the election, it's going to be disastrous.
Oh, dear.
so, so I'm not. I like to be optimistic, but I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
Yeah,
What
no,
do you think?
man, I mean, I'm very much an optimist by nature. I'm very
Okay.
much an optimist by nature, but I'm an optimistic realist.
Okay.
And I really think it depends on the so-called silent majority. I think it depends on people collectively just being like, you know what, no. Like you said, people want to take you in for unconscious bias training. People want to force you to, before a meeting begins, make do a prayer where you confess to your whiteness and your guilt and your inherent racism and whatever before the meeting begins. Like when people are just like, you know what, no. Like you said, when their school teachers are wanting to teach their 6 year olds, teach the white kids that they're privileged, teach the black kids that they're oppressed and that there's all these dynamics in society that are going to benefit them or set them back, etc. I think when people just collectively, not just the culture warriors, not just the
Yeah.
political pundits, not just the people, but just the normal people. Because if you talk to people in real life, very few people, these ideas are not popular. They're not popular. The idea that
No.
you should judge someone based on their skin color, or that, white people are evil, or white men are the devil, or this or that, or, men in general are having weekly patriarchy meetings, putting the boot down on women. White people are putting the boot down. These ideas they're really not popular. Like
No.
even amongst people who are more liberal, more left leaning, they're not popular ideas, but people feel cowed, really. People are
We got
afraid.
over it, didn't we? Through the
Yeah,
whole civil rights struggle, we had these debates. We
exactly.
moved on this. The
Exactly.
problem you're going to face, though, is that a lot of people, particularly in the UK, are going to say to you, "Yeah, but that sort of stuff, the prayer of contrition about your whiteness before meet, that isn't happening. What's that? Because that is happening in America and isn't happening yet here." But the problem you've got for these people is that now that, for instance, White Fragility by D'Angelo is so popular over here, now that, well, not popular, but I've got teachers have contacted me saying it's on their reading list now,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's only a matter of time. So at the moment, there are teachers out there and people out there who aren't familiar with this. They haven't been confronted with it yet, and then it's going to start creeping in. It's inevitable because it's certainly taken over the universities in the UK. So and now we know that it's seeping into schools. So how long before? So that's the pushback you'll get as well. This is in your head. This is you're importing a problem that's in America and that isn't here, but it will be here very very soon.
Yeah, I think eventually I just think eventually people have to wake up. And, people might have, like I said, it may have to just hit very close to home. I know a lot of people who totally refuse to accept that there are sort of any issues on the left side of the political spectrum. Conservative types, have been talking about this for forever. And
Yeah.
people have been saying that it's a slippery slope fallacy, or that, they're being unnecessarily concerned about certain things, and et cetera. And, but there can be cases where perhaps that's been true.
Sure.
But in a lot of cases, people have been proven right. Things people were saying 10 years ago or 5 years ago are now coming to light. I remember in 2016 having a discussion with people because I started to see the whole, um, biological men competing against biological women in sports by identifying as women or saying they're
Hmm.
trans or what. I'd seen that. I saw that happening years ago. And I remember having conversations with friends and saying, you know what, like, if you can just identify as a man or identify as a woman, like this is going to open a whole Pandora's box of
But
craziness.
they would have said to you that
Yeah,
you're fighting an imaginary enemy.
exactly. They did.
Then
They did.
Stonewall, even Stonewall, so the major LGBT charity in this country, has now said there's no issue with biological men playing women's rugby.
Yeah,
So, I mean that's just physically dangerous. So you were right, basically.
yeah. I was right.
That's
I mean, look, I'm the British women's deadlift record holder. Like,
you are
I am. Like,
definitely.
you're speaking to her. So anyone who was saying that that I was being alarmist or that I was making something up, it's like,
Yeah.
well, lo and behold, no, I'm not. And you really don't need to be a genius to work out the potential danger and implications
Right.
of this,
And
especially when they're talking about sports, they're talking
yeah.
about prisons, That
And what's fascinating about this now is the alliances that are happening. So, I mean, people who are traditionally on the left and the right finding each other and saying, actually, no, but we all agree that this is nonsense. Feminists, of course, most notably, are feminists who have would really be in opposition to a lot of the points that I've made in the past, but now are on side because of the trans issue and they see the threat. So, and that's been really interesting. I mean, now the LGBTQIA plus acronym, or whatever you want to call it, has no function anymore because, of course, the various factions within that are at loggerheads. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.